That's a whale.
I'd really started getting stressed.
That's like, oh my gosh.
Tickled to death. How's that to start your morning?
Well, that was freaking awesome. That was so cool. Come on, and welcome to a new episode of Vintage Sports. Welcome back. Been a little while, but we're here to talk bass fishing this evening. And it's nice because I feel like the end of last year and our first tournament this year, I was coming to you with some sad news, depressing news, that things didn't go well. But the good news is, now we've got some good news to talk about. First Morristown Marine Team Tournament of the Year went well this past weekend on Watts Bar with the one and only John Big Bear Berry, who we hope to have on the podcast soon. But that's kind of going to be the focus tonight, is not just that tournament, but some ways that we're approaching practice this year that may be different from years past, at least practicing for these tournaments, a week ahead of time. And that's going to be the main topic tonight, is practice versus reality, kind of like expectations versus reality. Kind of one and the same. And just how do you, if you're a regular weekend fisherman, how do you practice a week ahead of time for a tournament and have any idea kind of what to expect? I'm trying to think about that differently this year and approach it a little bit differently. And so far, so good. So far, so good. So anyways, let's kick it off with the verse of the episode. And this is a fitting one. This is what our scripture was this past Sunday, which was a big deal because this is the first time that we've been back in church consistently since the pandemic started. We came back a few times throughout the last year, but church reopened as far as in person this week, so that was a wonderful, wonderful thing. It was nice just to be able to be back in the building and share what our scripture reading was from this past Sunday. All right, this is Psalm 51, first two verses. Have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness, according unto the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. So we're getting geared up for Lent, and the Lent season before Easter rolls around, and Josh, our pastor, made the statements like, I feel like we've kind of been in a year of sacrifice and a year of Lent. So the fact that since we've come back in person, it's kind of an abbreviated Lent season, it might be kind of fitting. So anyways, Psalm 51 is the verse of the episode. So, bass fishing, breaking some stuff down. A couple different things other than approach and practice. Also going to give you, I think, like the 3 pre-spawn essentials, in my opinion. What I like to be throwing right now. And yeah, so let's just dive right into it. We'll start by talking about the Morristown, how it went. So John and I, first time fishing together as a team in probably at least 2 years, and fishing, seriously, other than just a little weekend 10-15 boat tournament as a team since I was in college, which was it's probably been 3 or 4 years since John and I have really fished a what do you call big tournament together. So first time fishing the Morristown Marines for both of us, and first time I fished any sort of team tournament in a while. So we were at Watts Bar Lake, put in at Tom Fuller Park, and we were down there the weekend before trying to do some practicing. And I say practicing with air quotes because it's obviously can be really difficult to practice a week ahead of time, especially this time of year when you've got so much stuff that's changing from week to week. There were a couple things that kind of held the entire month of January down in Chickamauga. Obviously nothing super productive for me, but there's some times of the year where not as much is going to change in a 7-day period, but spring, everything is so constantly changing that it can be really, really hard to get on something and it still be able to be something you can piece together a week later. So what we did, we were down the Saturday before. The elites were on Loudon, and we were down a lake lower on Watts Bar practicing, and we were there on a really rainy, foggy day, which we knew was not what the weather was supposed to be like a week ahead of time. Of course, that's another thing that is always going to change, what your weather is supposed to be. But it was rainy, it was foggy, it wasn't particularly cold. It was supposed to be a warm rain, but it got colder as the day went on. And it was fogged in all day long. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you couldn't hardly, you just had to barely get on pad, run around the lake, and just be super careful. So the conditions were kind of weird. We caught them doing something that day that's not something I was expecting to work. I figured rain. I'm thinking cranking spinnerbait, chatterbait on some flats and up shallow. The only thing that we got any bites doing the week before was flipping the last deep water back in pockets, whether they had to be docks or brush, and got probably 10 or 12 bites doing that, but just didn't catch any real big fish. Broke a rod, caught a bunch of drum, caught a catfish, caught a carp, caught a crappie. We kind of had a mixed bag. That practice video is up now, but we didn't really have anything super solid to go off of bass fishing wise. I mentioned in that practice video, it's like you get on something a week ahead of time. So in that case, it was a flipping bite, and the day of, you can kind of do two things. You're like, well, do we run around and figure out everything else we can do other than flipping? Do we put the flipping rods up and go crank and spinnerbait and swim bait and whatever? Or do we just keep the flipping sticks in our hands and go flip and just see where we can get bit at? And we tried to do a little bit of both, but all we knew is that there's some fish shallow, there's some fish wanting to be shallow, and the water temp was not super warm. It wasn't frigid cold. It was probably, we saw between 45 and 52 last weekend, and that 52 was only in one area. It was back in Bayside. You go wading back in Bayside, which this time of year when I've been down there tends to be the warmest water I can find. We caught a couple back there. It was by far the warmest water, but most of that water was between 46 and 49. You really didn't see 50 very often. And flipping that last little deep water before they'd be sliding up on some of that flat stuff was the only thing that we could get bit doing. And so our thought was, well, if we've got fish that are this far along, we're catching fish like this, they're not going to pull out. The weather that week leading up to the tournament, it wasn't getting super warm, but it was being stable, and it hadn't been the last few weeks. So the weather was stable. You have between 50 and 60 most of the week. And so we're like, there's only going to be more fish that get shallow, more fish that start to set up on this staging stuff like you'd expect them to. And so it shouldn't get any, this bite shouldn't go away. The flipping bite may not be there, but they're going to be in these types of areas. And really we just kind of left the weekend before with that in mind. We're like, all right, we've got a few, we really didn't catch any big fish. We didn't catch a lot of keepers. And one thing that I did was we intentionally didn't go to the 3 or 4 areas that are typically the best areas for me on Waspar that time of year. Just places where I think, I'd say this, I really think we could just roll through a couple of places and at least get bit in the morning. And there's enough diversity in different places to fish down in, we were at White's Creek and a couple of pockets down below it. And thinking, well, I think there's at least 4 or 5 spots that if we roll through them, we can get a pretty good idea of what's going on and try to run with it from there. So we started off that morning. It was a really, I've caught a lot of fish here, a lot of spots, and some smallmouth. And we pull up to it, and it's essentially, it's just a big point. It's got some deep water on both sides of it. It's just a big point. It's got a lot of brush and a lot of rock on it. It's a really good place for them to pull up and feed at, and that's what I expected them to be doing that morning. So it cooled off a little bit. I think the high that day was only 52, 53. The sun was going to come out in the afternoon, and the wind was supposed to blow out the northeast. And so in my mind, I'm thinking Alabama rig and jerkbait is going to be kicking today. And that's what I was hoping for. So the first 2 places we pulled up on were places I were hoping where these fish were going to be pulled up on and feeding. So I'm kind of just fan casting jerkbait and Alabama rig around. And John is throwing a big 3/4 ounce football head jig, which is something he does really well. He does a lot. He just likes to do it and is good at it. And so I'm fishing out around the edges of this point and up on it, and there's brush all over it. I'm marking a couple fish just out roaming around, but none that were just super active. John catches the biggest fish that we caught that day was probably close to a 4-pound spot, at least 3.5-pound spot. That was really shallow, way up on the point, on his big football jig. I think we ended up making 5 passes, because the first 3 passes we caught 3 keepers. John caught that spot. He caught a keeper smallmouth, about a 19-inch, 3-pound smallmouth on that jig, up on that shallow part of that hump. That one's probably in 7 or 8 feet of water. And then I caught another keeper spot, just dragging a little rage buck, just a Texas rig rage buck, which had been what I was flipping the week before. And it just seemed right off the bat, it's like he's fishing it as slow as he can fish it, and they're picking it up when it's sitting still. I had one small fish, I think it was just one small probably little spot, that bit the Alabama rig, and I never even hooked it. And so we made another pass, and I caught that third one just dragging real slow. And once we felt like we'd fished it pretty good, we tried to get on a couple other spots there in Watts Creek. There were a ton of boats in there that morning. So our team tournament had 235 boats in it. And I pulled into one. It's a little pocket in Watts Creek, or what was going to be our second spot. It's like boat, 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 boat. We pulled in, shut down, turned around, left. Fished a couple more spots, didn't catch them. And our thought that morning was, if we can find somewhere that's got fish, there ought to be a couple fish that'll reload and pull up on it. And so don't leave fish to find fish, essentially, especially the day of. There's one other area down the lake that I knew I really liked, and I'm like, if we can get bit there doing that, it's like we ought to be able to catch them this next spot down. And so we pull up, and I think John's second cast, he catches a 3-pounder on an Alabama rig, and then 2 minutes later catches another one. So that's our 5. We jumped around a couple other spots, come back to, we fished through both those areas again. One of them I called out a small spot with a 3.5 pounder on an Alabama rig, and that ended up giving us our weight. So we only caught 6 keepers, and I jumped off. We did go flipping later in the day and got bit flipping, but we just, it's kind of jumping around. We'd go flip and we'd go trap, and we'd flip and we'd go jerkbait. We'd flip and we'd go Alabama rig, and really only lost one fish that would have helped. I jumped off of probably a 4.5 pounder flipping, but I think even a pound upgrade wouldn't have put us any higher in the standing. So we ended up weighing 1681. Right under 17 pounds. That was good for 10th. So super stoked that we were able to get a good start in the Morristown with a top 10, especially after not so stellar of a practice. And I really think that kind of just mental approach we took to it was, we don't really care that we didn't catch a lot of fish or we didn't catch any big fish the weekend before. I think we've got a general idea of how far along these fish should be, what kind of stuff they wanted to be on. Let's go run 3 or 4 spots this morning, see if it makes sense to us, and then just kind of take it from there. And really, it kind of worked. I think overall it was pretty tough. It took 11 pounds to get a check. It took 17 top 10, took 22 to win. You had guys that could lock down a Chickamauga. I don't know how many did. I heard the guys that won went to Chick. They had a 970 something, 970, 980 something. And one big fish. And I know a few other guys that locked down Chick, but apparently it was just kind of tough overall. We were obviously blessed to catch the ones that we caught. But just that mentality of, all right, we're not going to go fishing just because we caught them here last weekend, but just trying to look a lot more big picture, if that makes any sense, which is the same way that I'm trying to approach and get ready for Cherokee this coming weekend. So BFL coming up on Cherokee. I went out Sunday afternoon for 4 hours on the lower end of the lake, which is the end of the lake that I know best, fishing down around the dam. Was only out for 4 or 5 hours, but did not get a bite. Spent a little bit of time just looking around. The water wasn't, I thought it might be a lot warmer than it was. The main lake was still 45, 46. And we found in the back of a couple creeks, 53. One guy said Mossy Creek was 54. So I'm sure there's some fish getting back there, but I'd really rather catch smallmouth because that's what I'm usually doing at Cherokee. But I'm gonna spend some time this week. I may get to go one day before Saturday, and I'm gonna spend my time up mid-lake, from mid-lake up, put in at 25E, and ideally stay from German Creek up, because I'd love to. That's where we're putting in at for the BFL, and I'd love to be able to keep from running down to the dam. But I also feel like if I spend all day, and because this week there's going to be a ton that's changing, so I really don't care. I'm not a bit worried that I didn't get a bite yesterday, but there's going to be so much changing this week because the weather is 60s and 70s. I think I can pull it up and look, but we've got a couple days in the 70s. We've got nights that are going to be in the 50s. We hadn't had a night all year that stayed in the 50s. I'm 90% sure. Looking at this, I got 64, 66, 70, 73, 71, and then it's showing it'll change. Rain on Saturday, like a warm rain on Saturday, which I would love for it to be a warm rain on Saturday. Anyways, so my hope is trying to take this big picture view, let it get warm, go up there maybe Thursday or Friday, and just try to figure out what the fish are doing. But if I don't catch them up the lake, and if I don't feel confident I can do it on Saturday, then I feel a whole lot better with my chances going down the lake not having practice down there just because I feel like I know it a little bit better and have at least got some places I think we could go and get a few bites and catch some. Would love to mix some largemouth in if we could find some largemouth, but I have bad experience trying to catch largemouth on a smallmouth lake and vice versa. So anyways, don't really care what we catch. Maybe we get on something. That's the goal. So anyways, I'm gonna break down real quick just the baits we were throwing for the Morristown and that practice video. I am a little biased, granted, but the practice video, not the practice video, I'm sorry, the tournament video for the Morristown is probably gonna be the coolest video we've done yet. It helps that there were a lot of fish caught, but also it was just, it's cool fish too. We had a 3 pound smallmouth, 3 pound largemouth, and a 3 pound spot. And I'm all for mixed bags, and I'm all for spots, and just seeing big spots just gets me excited. I don't care if I catch them or net them. I'm just happy they're around. Anyways, so the two big things for us, I don't have John's big jig with me, but it's just a 3/4 ounce football jig that he was throwing, dragging real slow. I mean, fishing at 3-4 feet of water. And I was throwing just a little striking rage bug. That caught a keeper. This is what the keep bites. This is what they came on. They came on a big jig, and they came on a striking rage bug. Okay, this is the Owner Jungle flipping hook, a little 3/8 ounce tungsten from Beast Coast, a little sinker peg up top. It's 15 pound red. That's 20 pound red label, and just a little watermelon, green pumpkin. Nah, it's green pumpkin. Green pumpkin rage bug. I love the coffee scent stuff. I don't know if fish have ever smelled coffee, but they seem to not hate it, and I love how it smells. So anyways, that was one, that and a jig, and then the only other thing we caught a keeper on was an Alabama rig. And so John caught two of our fish we weighed in on his Alabama rig, and I caught one on this one. I didn't catch one on it until I dipped the tails. John, so I'm throwing a three blade one, well, 3 swim baits. Same one I was throwing at Chickamauga, the Picasso BFL Smackdown, I think. And I was throwing the gold blades. The water had a little bit of color to it. I thought it might clear up some, but it really wasn't. John caught more fish on his rig than I did. We were both throwing the Little Dippers, the Reaction Innovation Little Dippers. And we both had the same Damiki, I know it's swinging, but we both had the same Damiki Pandala jig heads on it, just an 1/8 ounce. But his swim baits were gorgeous, and he was throwing, not gorgeous, they were gorgeous because they caught some. His Little Dippers were like a chartreuse. I think they had a little bit of blue in it, but they just had a little bit more color to them than my solid white ones did. And instead of gold blades, he was throwing silver. So I don't know if that really made a difference. It was really just 2 to 1 bite-wise, but that 3 of the 5 fish we weighed in came on the Alabama. Love them or hate them, if you can throw them this time of year, probably at some point you should be throwing them. And that was it. That was the only thing our keepers came on. And so that is going to be 2 of my 3, what I would consider to be your must-haves for the pre-spawn. So, and the Alabama rig, I hate it. I really don't like it at all. I've gotten to where I don't mind throwing it as much, mainly just because I like to catch fish. But it's one of those where if you can throw it, if they're going to let you throw it, you got to throw it, because it just catches them. As aggravating as it can be, whether you think it takes away from the skill or you just don't like it because it's heavy, whatever. I think if they're going to let you throw it, you got to throw it. The one thing that I like doing on it, and I initially was not a big fan of it, and I didn't really think that it made that much of a difference until I got my tail whipped by somebody that was doing it. Matt Allen, shout out to Matt Allen, is throwing it on fluorocarbon. And you can throw it on, obviously a lot of people throw it on braid. I saw one of Dustin Connell's videos the other day. He's like, I throw it on braid all the time. There's no reason not to throw it on braid. I just think it's easier to throw it fluorocarbon. I'd rather not throw it on braid. But I've had just a few days where it, in my mind, and this just goes back to what you prefer and what you feel more confident doing, there's just been a few days where in my mind I got blistered by whoever was in the boat with me because they're throwing it on fluorocarbon and I was throwing it on braid. And the best example of that goes back to Kentucky Lake. This would have been my sophomore year? Yeah, this is my sophomore year at Tennessee Tech. I was fishing a tournament with Matt Allen right after he got back from Oklahoma and winning the college classic exhibition tournament somewhere in Oklahoma. And so he meets us at Kentucky Lake. We roll down a stretch on the main lake, and he catches a 5 or 6 pounder. He said, dude, you got to take that braid off and throw fluorocarbon. I'm like, whatever. And he catches another 6 pounder. He said, dude, done it. Fluorocarbon makes a difference. And he catches another 5 pounder, and I never got a bite. So I go home that night, we go back to where we were staying, I take my braid off, go to the gas station and buy a 25-pound fluorocarbon, since every gas station around Kentucky Lake has a tackle section. And I got my 25-pound fluorocarbon and caught a 6 3/4, 7 pounder the next day, won a Powerball. And I was like, appreciate that, Matt. And I've just thrown on fluorocarbon ever since. I've never had one break off. I mean, I guess the only benefit to braid is if you get hung and you've really got a wrench on it to get it out, you're going to straighten the hook before you break the braid. And I haven't had a time yet where I've broken the fluorocarbon. I'm holding this up. I haven't had a time yet where I've broken the fluorocarbon trying to straighten the hook out. It's still been able to straighten the hook out. That is just 25-pound, the Bass Pro fluorocarbon. And it's been fine. It's worked great. So that's one of them. The second thing I would call, oh man, I really need 4. I'm gonna extend it to 4. I can do that. So second one, I'm like, and that, the rig, is just whatever big broomstick rod you want to throw it on. I throw it on 7.6 Lew's Magnum heavy cover. That's what I've been throwing on this year. 7.6 Lew's Magnum heavy cover, a 6.4 to 1. Just because usually when I'm throwing it, it's this time of year, and I have to make myself slow down a little bit and just creep it along the bottom. But that's one. Number 2, I won't talk a whole lot about this because I feel like I've done it in every video this year, but it's the old jerkbait. Doesn't really matter which one you like to throw. I just did a little Megabass, my favorite setup for a Megabass one, in a video a week ago, about a week ago. And the only thing that I haven't mentioned yet is typically I'll stick a red hook on the front of it. And I typically will change all the hooks out. This one doesn't have a change out either. But that front red hook, I took a couple of the Bass University classes when I was in middle school and high school. And one of the things I'll always remember Mike Iaconelli saying is he likes, or at least did at the time, putting red hooks on everything. And his mentality was, if I put a red hook on it, is there going to be a fish that looks at it that would have bit it with a silver hook and bite it with a red hook? And it won't bite it with a red hook? Probably not. But is there going to be a fish that sees the red and maybe it triggers something? Maybe. If it's going to get you one more bite, why would you not put it on? So he was a fan of red hooks. I make a point to put them on most of my moving baits. I don't always throw red like Texas Rig or drop shot hooks. Maybe I should. But normally I'll put a red triple grip on the front. But jerkbait's got to be one that you throw this time of year because it's my favorite and because it just flat out catches them. Third, some sort of crankbait. I like a DT, either a DT10 or DT6 or DT4. It really just depends on where you are. That one is going on for Cherokee. That's just a red DT10. The Demon Color, got a couple of those. I like a 6. I like a Little John. Really, that one, I'm not a big cranker. I'm trying to be a bigger cranker, at least this time of year. Or at least get a little bit more experience with it and just doing a little bit more. But the DT10s and DT6s I'm a big fan of. I love a Bandit, the root beer color Bandits. I love a Little John. I got a couple of these I got at the fishing show last year. Rest in peace, 2021 East Tennessee Fishing Show. But I love a good custom painted Little John or any Little John. But anyways, I feel like crankbait's got to be in there. And then last but not least, a jig. And I don't have a picture of a jig, or I have a picture of a jig. I didn't bring a jig over to the condo today for this. Didn't think about it. But I do have a little Rage Bug. Same thing. Something slow. I feel like, and I'm going to make a bold, unpopular opinion coming at you from the Fenced Forest booth. I'm going to make a prediction. And I don't know that it isn't already happening. I know that it's not already happening, but I feel like this is going to happen. Think about spinnerbait. A lot of people replace the spinnerbait with swim baits and chatterbaits, and you just don't hear about people throwing spinnerbaits as much very often, or like winning big tournaments. When's the last time you heard about somebody winning a tournament just straight up catching them on a jig for 3 or 4 days in a row and just slow grinding throwing a jig? I can't remember. I'm sure it's happened in the last little while, but I can't remember it. So here's my prediction: the next spinnerbait, the next fish catching thing that still catches fish that everybody just kind of forgets about and puts away because they're fishing too fast or they forget about it and they just don't want to take the time to fish it, is going to be a jig. And I love a jig. That used to be. In high school, that's all I threw was a jig. But I'm going to make the prediction. The next bait that is going to be overlooked and forgotten for newer, fancier, stealthier things, not stealthier things, newer, fancier, more whimsical lures, is going to be a jig. And it's not ever going to not catch them. So, anyways, that may be stupid to say, but I thought about that today. I was like, you know, people, I feel like the jig is kind of getting out of the limelight, which is just how I like it. But anyways, I would say a jig, you gotta have a jig too. There's lots of things you probably have to have. If I had to narrow it down to 4, that would be my 4. An A-rig, I say an A-rig, I'll say 3.5 things you have to have. Because if you can't throw an A-rig, then good for your tournament director. And take it out of the equation. But a jerkbait, a crankbait, and jig. I feel like you could catch a fish on every single lake. At any day, this time of year, with one of those 3 things. A megabass, some sort of DT, and a jig. Alright. That's all I got. That's all I got for you. A little practice perspective, an update on Morristown, and yeah, some promise for some good weeks ahead. We got Cherokee. The weekend after that, we got Dale Hall. The weekend after that, we got Norris. Then we got a few weeks off. My lovely bride and I, we are probably going to be making a run up to Philadelphia because we just found out news to the Defense Force Nation, which is all 5 of us out here. We have officially, I'm going to say we, it's your job, but we both did. Well, you got the job. We both accepted it. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay. We have accepted the job that Dana was offered at the University of Pennsylvania and Children's Hospital in Philadelphia. So coming this summer and early fall, we are going to be moving to Philadelphia. So that's just some exciting stuff. However, have you ever been?
Nope.
Yeah, we've neither one ever been there. But we know we're moving. So we're going to take some time this spring and summer, obviously, go up there, look around, scout it out. It's going to be like a practice day in April. We're going to go out, scout the territory, see where we might want to spend some time, where we don't want to spend some time. And yeah, cool stuff, exciting stuff. She's going to be studying, is it just neurological diseases? That's probably not an act. The diseases that you can get assigned, are they neurological or?
Yes.
They are.
Neurological pediatric.
Neurological pediatric diseases with the University of Pennsylvania and the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia under the direction of Dr. Boge. Dr. Elizabeth Boge?
What?
Is that her first name? Yes. Under the direction of Dr. Elizabeth Boge. So, exciting stuff. And I can't wait to move. I've lived in Knoxville forever. I love Knoxville. I love East Tennessee. I imagine it will always be home. But it is exciting for this whole country boy to get out in the world and see what all it's got to offer. So that's what we're going to do. Alright. I hope everyone has a phenomenal evening, a phenomenal week, like I tell my classes every morning. It's a great day to have a great day, so whenever you're listening to this, I hope you decide to make the remainder of this day and the next a phenomenal one. Alright. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you would subscribe, we'll love you for it. We appreciate it. And have a wonderful day.